so mouthy.
Oh, that's a nice mouthfeel. Now, I should warn you, that is not from our wonderful coffee sponsor, Black Rifle Coffee. This is actually Topo Chico. And that's because
nice.
I went to a coffee shop recently when they gave you espresso. They gave you this as like a palate cleanser. And so I drink my coffee before the show.
Oh, that's
Nice.
And
I
palate
should.
cleanse.
And we have Dan Crenshaw on the show today.
We do.
Yes.
Whoa.
Looking
Love
forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. I cut you off, but you seem like it's okay. You can talk with me.
No, I am talking. I said I loved him.
Oh, this is.
I'll say it again.
Audio
I
Wade,
love you.
Quarter Black Garrett, Gerald A, half Asian Larry Bill
my
Richmond. How are
gosh.
you, sir?
I'm wonderful, but I cannot deal with Gerald Morgan's pirate fetish in the morning. I mean, it's just
Hey, we might get a
What's-
call from YouTube about that.
Yeah,
Be
right.
careful about
another one.
referring to
Don't
Dan
hate.
Crenshaw as a pirate. Hey, and I really appreciate the kind words from yesterday's show to everyone out there, but you can stop with them because I'm not a homosexual. So, MugClub Quarantine is the hashtag. Of course, we're doing this through the end of the month. The final show will be next Thursday, where we watch a press briefing, Thursday Night Live, and live fact check CNN.
Oh, boy.
So right now the promo code is quarantine. You get $30 off if you join at lidouscreditor.com/MugClub. Subscribe to the podcast, all that stuff. Everywhere podcasts are sold or not sold. Okay.
Given away.
We have a lot. Oh, of course, in your chat. You can chat with us.
Yeah.
Only if you're a MugClub member, and we'll bring up the chat a little bit later. Audio Wade looks panicked. Are we?
No, he's
He's going really. "Ah!"
I'm always panicked.
So I should warn you.
Healthy
I am
amount of panic.
very angry this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, came in
why?
steamed.
Very
Came in
pissed.
very hot.
I wanted to do the CNN fact check now. I was in the room with my wife
wonder
this
why.
morning in my office, and I have a TV, and I'm watching. I watch on Hulu. I watch CNN because I have to, and I assume that they don't get the ratings from Hulu. I don't know. If I could sneak,
Hopefully.
Yeah, if there's
if I
a
could
way.
sneak into a movie theater without paying, but doing it with television programming, I would do it.
Right.
That's
I
what I
want to
should do.
contribute to that number.
With every Michael Moore film, I would be like, I don't know, I'll pay $2 for Blade 3. I don't care. and then I would go and
Well,
see
you paid your money.
and
You should
review
be
it.
good.
And then I was on record paying for Blade 3. I hope no one gets my tax
yeah.
return.
I guess that's better.
Because as an actor, it was a
little
write-off. I'm like, oh,
that's
wow.
right, yeah.
We spent $200 on Blade 3? Big Ryan Gosling fan. By the way, it's Ryan Reynolds. Again, I'm not homosexual.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, though, a question. Do you think that the Cuomo family is the perfect example of celebrity privilege and everything that is wrong with this country? Because we will be talking about Christina Cuomo, that is Chris Cuomo's wife. And, of course, we don't want to cross any boundaries because she has her own health blog, has nothing to do with the fact that she is Chris Cuomo's wife. So I want to make sure that within
absolutely
the
not.
bounds of propriety?
Yeah, propriety.
That works, yeah.
I don't know if propriety meant it was like proprietary.
I think those are different words.
But I was so mad this morning that I was in my office watching it on,
Not
on
sure.
Hulu, CNN. My wife came in and they were saying, there was someone on CNN saying, do not, please, a medical professional, drink or inject Lysol or bleach as the president prescribed. And I was going, and I told my wife, I said, babe, I love you. I am not mad with you or mad at you, but right now I really feel, and I mean this, an urge to whip my mug at the television screen. So I think you should leave the room.
Yeah.
And then I hit the heavy bag for like 30 minutes, and then,
Get rid of the energy here.
Can I tell you, I was reading this morning, and I had to stop reading because I started reading the reports when I was on the crapper, and it prevented me from going.
You got locked up.
I would literally because I
Wow.
read it and I thought, oh my gosh, he must have said some terrible things. Then of course you're reading the articles over and over again, and you're like, where's the actual quote? They just take one word and then they add to the beginning and the end. So then you got to dig and you got to dig. Couldn't find it on CNN. So then I'm like digging more and I'm like, all right, where's the actual transcript? Like just give me the paragraph, give me the full sentence.
Yeah.
And then I read the sentence and realized, holy crap, they're not even trying to
they
be
don't
honest
have
now.
it. Yeah.
It's pretty absurd.
this
at
is
this point.
CBD, so don't give me crap.
Oh my gosh! Hey, can we get like the heavy bag in here for you next week when we do the Thursday show?
Oh God, we're gonna
Because
need
we're
it.
gonna need a stress
gonna need
reliever
that.
for you in the middle of that 4-hour mess.
Hey, Gerald, can we do an
I
acting
hope that
class?
is not FDA approved because that's not doing shit. So for
You're
those
the
who
heavy
don't
bag.
know,
Right.
who haven't been following, of course, we'll get to this in a second, where they're blaming Donald Trump for even implying that you should be drinking or injecting Clorox, Lysol, name brand products.
All
by
of
the
it,
way.
yeah. We
Like,
gotta do name brand.
It'd be like if Donald Trump said there are certain grains and cereals that they're finding right now might have antibodies, and they go, unlike the president, we do not believe that specifically General Mills products cure COVID-19.
Right.
It is
Don't
so
look for the big G.
Do not.
You do not, in fact, gotta have your pops.
I'm
The captain will not, according to the FDA, make it happen. Back to you, homosexual Anderson Cooper. Live from your firehouse that you repurposed for $5 million in the West Village.
Wow.
You walking taint.
Whoa! Why are you insulting taints?
There's nothing wrong with a good tank.
My God, everyone's got one of those. Not everyone is a white ghost, terrible host guy.
Whoa, that was great.
Look at him.
Let's hope the quality of the insults improve. That's not exactly a cipher I'd want to put on my highlight reel.
That was pretty bad.
All right.
I won't enter the fray.
Your Honor, I rest my case. And Bill is just like, yeah, just give me a loss. Give me a guilty verdict.
I've handcuffed myself.
My way. All right. So let's kind of walk through this
fun.
before we get to the Lysol and bleach. And thank you guys so much for watching, tuning in. We love spending the morning with you. Maybe we'll be doing more of this as we go forward. So the Trump presser yesterday brought good news. We didn't stream it. I almost want to just stream them every day now, but I know we can't. He was back to kicking reporters' asses and really
as always,
by delivering good news, which they didn't want to hear. So turns out, like we've been talking about, sunlight, high temperatures, and high humidity actually does, in fact, kill the coronavirus.
You're the president, and people tuning into these briefings, they want to get information and guidance and want to know what to do. They're not looking for rumors.
Hey, Gabe.
I'm the president, and you're fake news. And you know what I'll say to you?
That's a soundbite.
I'll say very nicely.
Throwing a bald gay
I know you
catfish.
well. I know you well because I know the guy. I see what he writes. He's a total faker. So are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? It's just a suggestion from a brilliant lab by a very, very smart, perhaps brilliant man. He's talking about sun. He's talking about heat. And you see the numbers. So that's it. That's all I have. I'm just here to present talent. I'm here to present ideas because we want ideas to get rid of this thing. And if heat is good and if sunlight is good, that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead.
By the way, what I love with Donald Trump is when he says, perhaps brilliant, I'm just presenting talent. What he's saying is, you are an antonym.
Yes.
Talent? No. Brilliant? Gay bald catfish. Faker. And your boyfriend fakes it.
I love that.
I do like how he just is like very, remedial with them. He's like, just so you know, that's a smart person. Now let me reiterate, there's talent.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the funny thing is too, like he has, again, when we've done these press briefings, he has experts there.
Right.
Most of these quotes from Donald Trump's medical experts come from the briefings.
Yeah.
Because he goes out, gives a general layout of what it is they'll be discussing, and then they make sure to fine-tune it, correct it, because anyone can get things wrong when you're dealing with what did I have to have you Google this morning? And you know that I glutathione.
Yeah.
Glutathione, because I've read about this for a long time. You drink wine, you take NAC. We've talked about it. It's what they give you when you go to the hospital and you have some kind of acetaminophen toxicity. It's a medical tool that's used that you can also purchase as a supplement. Creates glutathione in your... But I've never actually heard it pronounced. I've only read about it, right? So I misspeak, and I'm certain... But I'm also dumber than Donald Trump. Let's be honest.
If you were Donald Trump, you'd have been accused of prescribing some drug made in South America.
Right.
People that's illegal.
Though they probably have some stuff that's pretty good. We should open up the border.
Cocaine.
The Hondurans are making great strides in the medical field, folks.
Got a morning regimen that we don't know about?
I just buy my meds from it's like a food truck, but it's a caravan.
Oh.
It's a Honduran caravan.
Really?
It's like the movie
But
Chef.
you get a discount.
Just to look it up and see.
So, to be clear, by the way, UV light kills, I think it was within 60 seconds if it's 95 degrees or higher with 80% humidity. Alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, works more effectively than bleach. Yeah. If it's airborne particles, UV light kills it very quickly, and then on a surface, it kills it within several hours, depending. I don't think we have necessarily the overlay, but this is undeniable. That's a good thing. That also means, by the way, that you are most likely safer at a Florida beach than on the L train in New York. Which
true.
Is why is no one else talking?
You know the L's in Chicago, right?
No, there's the L train in New York. Yes, it comes in from Canarsie, Brooklyn. I know this because I stayed in Canarsie, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's fake news.
Oh, God.
I don't believe it exists.
Exactly.
I went to the Brooklyn Cultural Center, and I was one of the only white people, and I rode the L train, and I remember thinking, there's a very strong chance that I'm going to get harmed.
Very much so.
Because it's the furthest stop on the L train.
The last one.
Rockaway Parkway. You know what? New Yorkers, fact check my lawyer. Let me get a win here. The L train goes out to Rockaway Parkway, and it sucks. It's a subway, and then it's above ground, and it's terrible. And this is. But why are they allowing it to be open in New York? Well, because it's essential.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But the beaches in Florida, in a beach town, are not essential. It's only essential because the workers require the subway to get to work. What are you saying? That New Yorkers' jobs are essential, and the guy who runs the Tiki Hut in Florida, his doesn't matter.
Yeah, non-essential income.
Hey, but I got to say, AOC has been very consistent here. She doesn't want people working now. She didn't want people working at Amazon. She didn't want those. I mean, at the very least, she has been consistently anti-American. So, they're the little wins that we can have right now. And, people are flipping and flopping, but she is just consistently communist.
I realize when I'm in a rage spiral, I have less of a sense of humor.
You do.
Because I should be laughing, but I was just angry with you.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I wanted to throw this wonderful, girthy, hand-etched mug and see if it left a Louder with Crowder-shaped imprint on your forehead, like Marv with the heating iron.
I feel like Donald...
Which, by the way, also kills
worth
COVID.
Trying.
It does, yes. I feel like President Trump could also be accused, based on CNN's reporting so
being
far.
Awesome?
No, pretty much. If you slice yourself in half and go out and sit in the sun, you could be cured from COVID-19. I feel like that's what they would say and be like, he said we got to get it in the body. Well, just cut yourself open. Go stand outside.
Yeah.
But they would count that
as news. They'd be like, well, that's what he said. That's what he said to do.
Yeah, and he was really just talking about the Circus Brothers. What are the name of those brothers? The Circus
Barnum
Brothers?
and Bailey.
Oh, that's it. I don't care.
Brothers?
So here's something else, by the way. We've talked about the Los Angeles County study.
We know who likes the
USC,
circus.
Santa Clara County, right? We said that at the high end, it looks like the death rate is 0.5%. And then for people who are healthy, who are of average or middle age, it could be as low as 0.01. But at the high end, I think we even said 0.7. Well, guess what? We have that in Los Angeles. Now we have it in New York City. They did the antibody testing. And New York, it's complete. Instead of 250,000 cases, they're actually saying now that it's closer to 2.7 million.
Wow.
And that means the death rate is 10 times lower than expected. Their quote, not mine. I calculated the numbers and I came up with close to 0.7.
Yeah.
Cuomo said 0.5% death rate in New York. So now we have three. Santa Clara County, we have Los Angeles, USC, and New York. The highest possible mortality rate is 0.5. Keep in mind, all of these projections were based on what? 3 to 5% death rate.
Wow. And in Italy, it was trending at 10%, right?
Yeah.
So we were thinking, oh my God, we're
Well,
going
it's
to end up
probably
like
higher
Italy.
in Italy because everyone is old and unproductive.
Well, right, but everybody was scared because of Italy. If you remember earlier.
Well, come on, what? That's going to offend people? What has Italy
I wasn't
contributed
offended
to
by
the global economy in the last 30
but it wasn't
years?
from them.
Aside from Geppetto.
That's right. Noodles were not from them.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
It was
you.
from your
Gerald.
people. I
It was
know.
from your
Thank
people
you.
and fireworks and coronavirus.
Hey,
so you
I'm-
guys, you're 2 for 3.
Chinese copyright and IP theft these days is just making up for Marco Polo stealing spaghetti.
Oh,
Okay?
gosh.
I'm
Here
just-
we go.
I'm just saying it.
You're oppressed by the imperialist powers, right? Throughout history.
The problem is he didn't.
No, it's just Marco Polo, man.
He didn't patent the noodles. There's a patent on a lot of the intellectual property theft.
Look, I don't need your
It would have been a good
facts.
idea, maybe, earlier on.
It's the problem is right now is CNN is on, and so by osmosis, we're all just prone to lying.
Dumber as well.
We're prone to saying, well, Donald Trump told me to eat biscuits and that'll cause, COVID to go away. I mean, it's as
Right,
ridiculous. It is hard not to be very angry because here's the thing, is so many people are going about their lives. When you talk about a single mom at home right now with kids and she turns on the news and she goes, hey, I'm going to kind of figure out what's going on. Or she goes, well, maybe I don't believe what I heard on the news, so I'm going to go look at the article. Sure. And then they dig to another article and they go to another article and that all says the same thing. And then they go, now I got to go feed my kids breakfast. And they walk away with this panic and this false idea what's going on right there. And then they get told there's no leadership. Nobody's paying attention. Right. And they ignore the fact that this was a quote from a conference where a medical doctor and another medical doctor were talking to the president about possible.
And instead they go to CNN for real news and they click through and they find themselves at Chris Cuomo's wife's blog selling healing crystals.
Oh, really?
We'll get to that in a second.
I heard they work.
Christina Cuomo. The words Chris Cuomo will not leave my... I would never actually want to in any way attack somebody's wife. Christina Cuomo is a public figure who in no way is capitalizing on her husband's platform to sell dangerous...
I don't think that's true, Stephen. You attack Brian Stelter all the time.
This is absolutely true.
He is a beautiful wife.
It doesn't apply to power bottoms. So...
I didn't read that.
By the way,
print.
hey, while we're speaking about this,
my
Sweden, you guys know this. Sweden, they didn't do a full lockdown, and right now, the capital Stockholm is expected to reach herd immunity in a few weeks. This is something that shouldn't be new to anybody. They even thought this was an idea originally in the UK that they thought they might want to do. The problem with herd immunity is you have to be all in, not 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Right.
But certainly, if you look at the numbers for Sweden, they're not worse than the rest of Europe. Certainly not as bad as the UK or Belgium or France. So this does matter. When people say, oh, the social distancing worked. Well, hold on a second. The numbers started declining before social distancing would have kicked in, and you would have to look to Sweden as well. The point is there's a lot of information that we don't have. Something that we do have definitively now is the death rate is less than 1/10 of what we were told, and that's what all the models were based on. Now, if you think that we should shut down the economy, that we should have 22 million jobless claims, as we've had now in the previous weeks. By the way, did you know 1 in 5 suicides is linked to unemployment? So if you think that's worthwhile for a 0.5% death rate, including 80-year-olds and people who are on CPAPs before they get COVID, then fine. You can make that decision, but you have to make the decision based on the actual information, and it is remarkable to me that nobody is. And I will say this, we'll move on to it in a second, but honestly, it hurts my soul, my heart. I thought Donald Trump was a prick in the primaries, okay?
Yeah.
But the character assassination that's taking place right now, it would be like us right now saying, hey, not saying that you shouldn't shut down, that you shouldn't social distance at all, not saying that you shouldn't wear masks, not saying that you shouldn't wash your hands, but maybe this has been overblown and someone goes out and says, Steven Crowder says, don't wash your hands, and then everyone fact checks me on something I didn't say. Yeah. It's so sinister at this point. You can't claim ignorance. We are beyond the point of claiming ignorance. No, you have to claim assholerance. That's what's happening.
Right, and it's in a colossal waste of time when every moment should be devoted to something important. Donald Trump has to field questions about, did you say that we should inject this, right? And why would you tell Americans that we need to do that? We need you to be our leader. Like, he's got to field those questions instead of what's going on with the virus right now. What kind of treatments are we coming out with? I want to go back to Sweden real quick, though. They did exactly
Never been to Sweden.
You said. I'm going to go back there mentally.
Amazing.
Have you been to Sweden?
Yeah.
No. Yes?
Yeah, I went there for a wedding.
Really?
It was incredible.
I can't go to Europe because I'll be
nice.
killed.
Well, that's true. But in Sweden, they did exactly what we had talked about doing. They made sure that they protected the
Also,
oldest
it's
people.
shit. All of Europe is pure shit.
I don't know if it's pure. Maybe,
It's true. It's adulterated.
Corn infested.
It's an adulterated shit continent.
They make good wine.
Just kidding. I went to Ireland. I liked Ireland. It was nice.
Yeah, that's
but you couldn't. I can't go to the UK or France. Are you kidding me? Here's why. And I want you to go back to Sweden. But here's people think that I'm joking. You know why I can't? You know this. This is not a joke. I have no defense. If I go there, there's enough ammo on me because Bob Ross painted Muhammad where they can jail me. And unlike in the United States, no one can defend me because free speech isn't a thing. If I go to Europe, I can walk off the plane, be hauled off in zip ties in a paddy wagon, and you never see me again because all of these countries that we want to love, until now, of course, I think the House of Cards has come down with socialized healthcare.
Yes.
I don't come back. And for me, that's enough to say, I hate your continent. Not the people. I hate your continent. I think it's shit. I think it's shit that you don't allow your people to cover kung fu fighting without being arrested from a karaoke bar. I don't like you. We don't need you. That's why we left. Talk about Sweden.
All right. So Sweden, they did everything that we said would be reasonable. They did social distancing. Nobody is complaining about social distancing right now. Nobody is complaining about taking precautions, washing your hands, making sure that you're not visiting older people if you could potentially be sick, or even just cutting off those visits.
It's a vacation.
Everybody is complaining about locking down the economy and completely getting rid of all of work and all of school. They didn't get rid of school either. Kids in high school and below, I think, were still going to school as well.
Yeah.
Right? They did a phenomenal job at this, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, you're going to do just terrible. Everybody's going to die. Well, they have the same death rate as people around them, right?
Actually lower than a lot of places.
Belgium and Denmark are half the size of their country, and they have half the death rate, or not death rate per capita, but half the death number, right?
Yeah.
So it's
per capita
comparable.
Is much lower than
exactly.
Denmark. Yeah.
Right?
Can I give
in
you
a couple of weeks, they're going to be good.
Can I give a quick example of
Not
how
if you're going
CNN
to try and sell us some kind of new disease preventative because you
or
create
noodles.
the disease and then sell us the cure. That's what you do. Admit it. It's not racist. That's what you do.
Bill Richmond, not Bill Gates. Get off my back.
Fair.
Hey,
fair.
So if CNN
Fair
was going
ball.
to report on what Gerald just said, the quote would read, Gerald supports meatballs as cure to COVID. I mean, that is exactly what just happened.
Yeah.
IKEA has inventory shortage. Also, I'm locked in IKEA. Anderson, please send help. The arrows just lead to more arrows. What am I going to do with 500 tea candles? But my bed folds into a bookcase, so that's good.
That's awesome.
Efficient.
Hey, you know
Like
what?
Transformers. for your
Sweden has
bedroom.
also contributed very little, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what's one interesting
Fish.
thing is this is actually true. If you were to go
What were you telling us before this, by the way, when you say this is actually true? That's my concern. When someone says, let me be honest for a second. Hold up.
Are you
No,
not?
that's
Normally?
a fair point. That's
Okay,
a fair
all
point. No, all of the rest of that was true. Meatballs are a cure for COVID.
True. He's
Not,
I
not
think
true.
so.
Not true.
I really do.
Is if you went to an embassy
Yeah.
for one of these countries that has these laws, you could be arrested at the embassy
Yes.
inside of the country that you're
Yeah.
in.
I know.
So, all these invitations we get from young Turks to go speak at the, UK embassy.
Right.
I
How
throw them in
about
the
Oh,
trash.
wow.
I throw them in the
that's
trash.
3D
There's
chess
something
right there.
more sinister afoot. Okay, so while we're talking about this and the unemployment and the shutdown of the economy, and the economy, by the way, not everything is shut down. It just comes down to what you consider essential. And now
Home
we
Depot.
understand people working in New York City, getting on subways, essential.
Yeah.
People who want to work in Florida and be on beaches where the UV light kills and sanitizes, not essential. We understand it. And you wonder why people think you're elitist. Well, let me present to you, as your people, not Asians, lawyers would say, Exhibit B for bitch.
Only in America does the president, when the president tweets about
Stephen.
liberation, does he mean go back to work? When we, have this discussion about going back or reopening, I think a lot of people should just say, no, we're not going back to that. We're not going back to working 70-hour weeks just so that we could put food on the table and not even feel any sort of semblance of security in our lives.
First off, she looks like that. She looks like the blonde musician Muppet had dyed her hair.
Right.
The up angle for cameras is also not very flattering.
And I know it's ad hominem, but it's okay just because I have disdain for her. So, that's all wrong, by the way. That's all incorrect. The average American work week, I don't have this in front of me, but I'm going by rote. I'm sure we can bring this up. You can go look it up in a previous video, is 30-something hours a week. I think it was 34, 36 hours a week.
34.4.
Not 70 hours. By the way, people who say I work 80-hour work weeks all the time, they're lying. It's very difficult to do. I've done it once or twice, but I regularly work 60-hour work weeks. People exaggerate all the time.
Yeah.
She is lying. I guarantee you, AOC has never, ever worked a 70-hour work week in her life. Americans working 70-hour work weeks are not barely scraping by to put food on the table. When she says, we want to get back, go back. No, people don't want to go back to their jobs. Actually, most Americans do. When they talk about Republicans pandering to the rich base, no. Republicans and conservatives pander to the gainfully employed base, to people who want to work.
Right.
AOC wants people on the public dole. She wants people to be hopeless. She wants people to feel like they are valueless and they are tools of the government, that they rely on the government to sustain themselves. She doesn't actually have anything. She cannot relate to Americans who want to work. Guess what? Sometimes work sucks. But I want to work. I want to do this job. I would be miserable if I didn't work at all. Now, you do need to frame in your life balance with work and your personal life, your family, of course. But if you want to talk about being out of touch, think about this for a second. Donald Trump, the man who was raised effectively a billionaire, has never gone a day in his life without being in the lap of luxury, has more in common with the average working class American than AOC from Westchester. I believe that may be wrong, but I feel like saying it. So AOC, I hope you lose.
Yeah, I hope she gets taken out easily from a political standpoint, right?
Yeah.
But people want to go to work. They want to make a living. They want to be able to put food on the table. That's obvious. But you know where you get a lot of your self-worth from sometimes? Being productive. Going out and putting a hard day's work in and producing something, providing a service to somebody. You get a lot of your social interaction from that. You get a lot of your friend groups from that. It's a great thing to be able to go and have a job. If you sit on the public dole for a long time, like you said, there's health risks for doing that.
Right.
Because you're not out interacting. Your suicide rate goes up, right?
Yeah.
People
that's
struggle
important. 1 in
mightily.
5 suicides are linked to unemployment. And that's
stress.
not a surprise, by the
Yeah.
way. We knew a guy in Montreal. So this was a guy. Remember I told you there was one wealthy family? Let's not say the name. There was one wealthy family that I knew. And it was like, oh my gosh, that family makes $100,000 like in Canada.
Yeah.
I was like, woo! I couldn't believe it. So I knew
Is that Canadian dollars or U.S.?
It doesn't matter. Any dollars. Actually, no, it probably would be under 6 figures now that I think about it. I don't know why I said it didn't matter. It's just because I'm angry, so my thoughts are fragmented.
It's okay.
But one of the guys, so their dad, I played hockey with the two sons. Their dad killed himself because he lost his job. Wow. And there's the Eaton Center for people in Montreal who know this. They call it, I believe they call it like the second city because there's a whole underground city in Montreal where you can literally never come above ground, and it goes like 4 or 5 floors deep.
Wow.
Subterranean, where there's shopping, there are food courts, there are offices. So you get off. So I would be across the St. Lawrence River.
Yeah.
On the South Shore, Villemoyne and Greenfield Park, St. Lambert. I would get in a subway. I would get to downtown Montreal, like going from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and I could go anywhere that I needed to in all of Montreal without popping my head above ground. And there was a guy, so when you think about the subterranean, right, like a food court in the Eden Center, so you're looking down about 4 stories, maybe 5 stories. It almost looks like that. I think they shot a scene in Blade Runner in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Oh, probably.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
weird room where it's like going up and you can see
Yep.
up. So this is the Eaton Center in Montreal. This guy lost his job and he jumped inside in the Eaton Center.
Oh, wow.
And landed in the food court. But you know what is so disturbing? They looked at the security camera footage and they saw him the entire week pacing back and forth on that top railway.
Really?
Before jumping. Because he knew that he was getting laid off, and then they looked into it and he was trying to see what his insurance would cover.
Yeah.
He had tried to apply for other jobs, and then I think it was on the 4th or 5th day, he just tipped right over. And I say that because that's anecdotal, but statistically, that is verifiable that suicides increase with unemployment. I go to a therapist, I go to an executive and a sports psychologist, and she's talked about how this has been very, very difficult for a lot of people. Her clientele is growing rapidly because people are going out of their minds. To act like people who believe in reopening the economy within this multi-phase program don't care about lives lost is disingenuous, and it's also to throw people off the scent that they will create more of a death toll.
Yeah. And one of the most harmful things for your overall health is stress.
Right.
Do you imagine how stressed people are right now that are just trying to get by saying, I can make it another week, I can't make it another month?
Don't make us get fact. Stress is bad, but the worst thing, cyanide. Okay?
Do not exaggerate, Gerald.
Stress is a killer.
And that is the most ridiculous part about it is, it's never been, hey, ignore the health, only focus on the economy. But the opposite argument is being made every day, like AOC is making, which is, or like what Rachel Maddow said, we can't think about reopening. We never should open. Anyone who talks about opening wants people to die, is excited for people to die, when that's not the case. The case is it is a thorny mess that we do need to have specific ways that we open parts of the country or parts of the economy.
And she's in a municipality where they have the subway. And I get it. Think about it. And she supports
She's down there
public
protesting
transit because
every
she doesn't
day,
want
right?
people driving
Yeah.
their own cars.
Right, yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. You want to know how I know they're hypocritical? As a kid, I found out I was a Republican at a very young age because I did the Arthur show.
Yeah.
And my dad showed me, it was almost like Halloween candy where he goes, okay, this is your check. And then he would cash it and go, this goes to the government. I don't think they tax you under 18. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but he said,
They do.
if you're over 18, I don't know about Canada. You're not a Canadian
Canada?
lawyer.
Well,
What do you probably have some family
They
there.
took it all for taxes then.
But he would be like, this goes here, this goes to healthcare, and then he would say, and this is what you're left with. I was going, what? He goes, yeah, these people are called socialists. In the United States, they're called Democrats. And I remember hearing about, after Columbine, and for a long time hearing about guns in the United States. Never fired a firearm until I was 20 years old because there was like one person who had a magical mystery handgun of death that was in a closet that was a World War II relic.
Boomstick.
And everyone was terrified of it. But do you know how you know that the left is hypocritical? There is one state that I know of, okay, where you can go and legally purchase a firearm without any kind of restriction at that point. You don't need a permit, and as long as you pass that background check as you would pass in any other state, you can walk out, carry it open or concealed forevermore. And the same state also doesn't have sales tax on items like clothing and a lot of luxury items. You know what state that is? Vermont, assholes.
Yeah.
It's Vermont. You want to tell me that Bernie Sanders, where he's championing gun control, why didn't he do anything? No one would bat an eye if he just said, okay, you need a permit. People are like, oh, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Makes sense.
They do that in pretty much every other state, with the exception of Arizona. I think there's maybe 3 states. Vermont. Purchase a firearm, thank you. Put it on your hip like you're Rick Grimes, or hide it if you want to. And I remember going there and being
Do
like,
whatever you want.
Oh, so I have to calculate 15% sales tax because that's what we had in Canada. And they're like, no, there's nothing. I'm like, what? I don't have any tax on these crappy carpenter jeans at Old Navy where no 2 pairs with the same waist size resemble each other in any way? I pay nothing? No tax? No sales tax?
So true.
And
the sizes didn't make any sense.
This is an extra large? Yeah. What's this? Extra large? Okay. One of them looks
I'll
like
take your word
Jared's
for it.
pants.
There's a little variant.
oh my God.
Subway Jared. Pedophile, rapist, that guy.
Federal
Okay.
prison, Jared.
By the way, we know that many of you are affected, of course, during this quarantine, which I think is not going to be as long-lived for everybody as people thought. So there's a lot of silver lining
that's
there.
good.
And hopefully when I'm mad, I entertain you. I deal with the pain so you don't have to. But we do want to help people who are inconvenienced, and so I think it's time to go to our traffic report with our senior traffic correspondent, Tommy Finnegan. All right, Thomas Finnegan, are you there, sir? Tell us what's going on this morning.
I am here, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Well, after I crash landed my helicopter, I was challenged to a duel by the local tribe's leader, who goes by the name of.
What?
I have successfully usurped his authority.
Okay, but what do we have any idea what's going to be affecting people's morning commute?
Yeah.
No news on that, but I do have a new wife, and her name is.
Okay, well,
Congratulations.
I guess we wish you the best, Thomas Finnegan. Is there anything else?
No
No,
other
sir.
questions.
Thank you very much. By the way, I guess this is as good a time as any to tell you that if you're subscribed, hit the notification bell. Hit all notifications because subscriptions don't mean a whole lot. You can subscribe on your phone, Android, Spotify for the podcast. And listen, if you can't be bothered to subscribe or hit all notifications, just check in every weekday, 8 p.m. Eastern. There's a new clip that goes up from the full show. Right now, you see what the full shows are like for MugClub Quarantine Month.
Yeah.
If you want this show to continue and you want to continue enjoying the free clips on YouTube, then please do consider joining. LottoScutter.com/MugClub. Quarantine, you get $30 off. Yeah.
Hey, if we get enough Mug Clubbers, can we get a new traffic guy?
Well,
We may need to.
No.
I don't.
And we had a
think
big
so.
sponsor coming that was a CBD sponsor, but it turns out it's a violation of YouTube's guidelines. So everyone who thinks,
no.
all you potheads who think that they're your friends, not so much. And it's just CBD.
That Finnegan
This
guy.
is CBD. There's no THC in it.
No. Good.
But they can't be a sponsor.
No.
That's revenue I'll never get back.
No, never, ever. They're taking a lot from you. By the way, that Finnegan guy, he's going to want to stay on the payroll, by the way. You can't let him go.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's a chief now.
He'll start.
Yeah.
You know,
He's
it
got plenty
doesn't
going
matter.
on.
Chief doesn't pay as much as you think anymore.
I don't know.
He has a new job.
He's got a
Let's
harem
let him
and
do it.
everything.
You know, he was technically he never actually ever did his old job. So
There
That
was
is
that
true,
one
yeah,
sock
that
he
is true.
reported on, but that was it.
Gotta tell you, I was hoping the mood would improve this morning. Not for me. Those smelling salts didn't do anything.
Still fuming over there.
Hey, I've heard if you throw that mug right at Audio Wade, it'll make you feel better.
Will it?
There's a lot of tech
Yeah.
over here.
They're
Don't
doing
do that.
studies on
It
that.
depends on, yeah, exactly. They're not
Throw it-
clinical trials.
Right, yeah.
They're observational studies.
But how will you know
impale
without
yourself-
empirical evidence? Science
need some
demands that you
anecdotal-
throw that mug at Gerald.
Maybe
No,
I should ask
no,
Chris,
no.
Maybe I should ask Chris Cuomo's wife. Sorry, Christina Cuomo.
Hey,
Chris for short? I don't know.
I thought
Very
it was,
serious lady in her own right.
I thought it was Crystal.
Is it Crystal?
Oh,
Dark
that's just what she's
crystals.
selling.
Oh.
Bill got jokes.
Healing crystal.
Gotcha.
Tim
They
Apple.
heal your. They align your body's energy. I don't know anything. So, okay. This is what was getting me so upset this morning, and I'm going to try and calm. How long is the clip, Quarter Blank, Darren?
It is 50 seconds.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
good. All right, so for 50
Breathe.
seconds, I won't be on camera, and I can practice my breathing exercises. Do it.
Woosah.
So
Woosah.
this morning, everywhere on CNN, and I'm sure we'll even see it as we go to. Oh my gosh, what is happening on CNN right now? The lady couldn't just like pick up her stuff.
It's like Sadness
Reba
Behar.
From
McEntire?
Tybee Island.
No. That's Florence from Florence and the Machine.
Oh,
She's become a mayor since her career
If you're
collapsed.
going to be on national
herself go.
television, and I mean, I use national television in the loosest sense of the word,
Yeah.
she must just not be concerned with putting away cardboard boxes because of viewership.
Yeah. Tybee Island, is that a big
Just
place?
tidy. What you said? Tybee?
Tybee-
Oh,
that's
well,
where she's the
apparently
mayor
it's,
of.
Apparently, it's not Tidy Island.
Oh, boy.
Oh wow,
Martha
Yeah,
Stewart, she
man.
is not.
That's brutal.
Okay, so this morning on CNN, they had medical experts saying, do not in any form drink bleach or Lysol or inject it directly into the body according to President Donald Trump's directions. This is everywhere right now. It's trending on Twitter. If you go to Reddit Politics, which there just needs to be a coup with conservatives going in there.
it's
Keep it
not-
respectful, but
not a
just
good
make your
place.
voices known. This is all based on, and you tell me if you see it, from the President Trump press briefer last night, where he talked about how sunlight, UV rays, kill COVID. He talked about which sanitization products work, and then was turning to, as you'll see, medical experts regarding some experimentation that they might be doing. You tell me if this sounds like inject yourself with Lysol.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked.
Ultraviolet
We're gonna test it.
or powerful
And then
light.
I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Oh, sorry, I was injecting Clorox into my dick.
Oh, does it work? Yeah.
Per the president's direction.
I jumped the gun a little bit there. So, did anyone hear him say inject this, by the way? Inject Clorox. Now, let me go through. He shouldn't have said the disinfectant thing. He should have separated his words. But he did do that with UV light. Now, this is important. Why? Because I've actually been in a little bit of a tiff with my wife lately. Because after I had knee surgery, right, they used infrared light. They use it on my knee. It's very typical. Anyone out there, if you've ever done it, they use this, and it's actually approved for certain therapies, not a cure for coronavirus. I wanted to get an infrared sauna, but my wife was like, well, then you'll be infertile. And I was trying to make this argument. Actually, it's not nearly as hot as a Finnish sauna, and you can turn it down. You can get the benefit of infrared light into your tissue without actually having to get really hot. And she's not a fan, so I can't do it. Okay, fine. But the point here is we know that it works. Right now, run a search on infrared light. There's actually a shortage on infrared saunas because people, for whatever reason, think that it helps with coronavirus. I'm not saying that it does, but it does raise the body's temperature, and it has been shown in medical studies to help with immunity. So a lot of people have been looking into that. He said UV light or some other powerful light force. Maybe we could, well, guess what? Infrared light penetrates deep into tissue. He could be referring to that or the non-harmful UV rays. He's simply saying we know that this works, that it kills it if it's airborne. Would there be a way to experiment with this to see if it could help people? And they're talking about that. That is totally valid. He didn't say go out in the sun and look like skin cancer lady, sunbed lady, because that's going to kill coronavirus. He didn't say that. He didn't prescribe that. And he was looking to medical professionals. By the way, when we're talking about disinfectant in the body, do you know what chemotherapy is? Now, it's not Clorox, it's not bleach, it's not Lysol, but you are putting something in your body that kills things, and that's why people get really sick. This idea that, hey, is there some kind of a chemical that we could maybe extract to clean out the lungs, which is what he's talking about, worded well? Probably not. But then the media goes out and they use the brand name, Lysol. Donald Trump said inject Lysol, which he didn't, to the point that Lysol actually issued a statement saying,
like,
don't.
Hey.
Yeah. And
No.
People look up the board at Lysol and their political contributions, because that seems a little bit fishy to me.
Oh, my God. It's a great cleaner, but don't put it inside your body. And by the way, like you said, he did look over to the doctor. He said, I don't know. They're looking into these things. But basically what he said is we have found a weakness with this virus and many other viruses. How do we translate that to something that can go in the human body that won't kill us but will kill the virus? That's essentially what he's saying. They gave him no leeway, no benefit of the doubt whatsoever in his comments at all.
Gerald, can I correct you?
You can.
He didn't essentially say that. He actually was just asking.
Yeah.
Like, the entirety of that exchange was saying, you're looking into these things, right?
Yes.
Are you looking into these things that could disinfect the body? Was that a poor choice of words? Sure. The guy who's a real estate mogul and not a doctor.
Yeah, do we expect the president to be a scientist?
And do you know what he did?
And I understand.
Before and after? Brought up doctors.
Right. He kept saying, well, he kept literally not only looking at the doctor, but saying the word doctor while talking to a doctor about, hey, are you looking into these things?
Yeah.
And
then
you know what
you would have to use a medical doctor.
Right. Yeah. And he goes, I don't know. At the very end, I don't know. Sounds interesting to me.
And they do. And by the way, they are constantly researching light therapy. And in some cases it helps, in some cases it doesn't. That's not quackery. We'll get to that in a second. Infrared, they use it in incubators, right? Infrared light therapy. It is used in the medical. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but I guarantee you right now as they explore all of these options, they're probably looking into approved non-invasive therapies if they could potentially help, especially when you consider that UV and infrared light are both a part of the rays that you feel when you go out into the sun. And there is a way to harness this with it being beneficial and not harmful. Does it benefit someone if they have coronavirus? I don't know. President Trump doesn't know. He said he doesn't know. Could it cure it? Probably not. Could it be beneficial as a preventative? Maybe so. These are conversations that people should be having. And if he doesn't, guess what? They say no answers from President Donald Trump right now as this virus continues to spread. There's no way. And the character assassination that takes place here right now going out there and fact-checking something he never said is so upsetting.
Well, and it's probably going to be, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes until we get the first story of somebody who's a woman who poisons her husband. I mean, accidentally gives her husband the wrong thing.
Oh, yeah, the chloroquine? By the way, did you see?
No, not chloroquine. We're now into Lysol and Clorox. He said inject it. So the next homicidal maniac who wants to get rid of her husband says, hey, honey, I injected myself. I'm fine. Here's yours.
Right.
Well,
you know what else? Remember the guy who took the chloroquine?
Yeah.
The wife? Yeah. He was an engineer.
Oh, so really dumb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, like, you think an engineer might have a question like, you're having me drink fish tank cleaner? I guess it's like sleepy time tea. No. He was poisoned. He was
worked for you, honey.
Allegedly poisoned. This lady who hates Donald Trump, who tried to divorce him, who has a history of mental health disorders, who didn't seem to suffer any symptoms herself, and said she drank it because Donald Trump told us to, and her husband is an engineer, drops dead immediately.
Yeah.
Why is there no investigation?
Yeah, the Lysol injection defense is about to become a thing.
Carol Baskin is saying, that's severe.
Wouldn't have gone that far.
So Donald Trump did not push this, by the way, as though it was a guaranteed cure. He did not and there is a danger, of course, we all agree, in pushing quackery and unverified medical claims.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to Christopher Cuomo's wife, Christina Cuomo. Now, again, I want to be really clear. None of us would ever just attack someone's wife because they are a public figure. That wouldn't be right. It would be untoward. It would be crossing a line. But Christina Cuomo, so you can forget about Chris Cuomo for a second here. Christina Cuomo is a lifestyle blogger and health advocate who has, I think it's The Purity. What is the name of the website?
The Purist.
The Purist. The Purist.
Enunciate.
That's Christina Cuomo, where she did actually go through the Cuomo chloroquine regimen. So Christina Cuomo, a separate human being, entity, public figure, all in her own right. That being said, Chris Cuomo's wife is an idiot. So this is going out there. While we're talking about something that Donald Trump never actually said, she wrote a whole blog post of their protocol.
Right.
One is she advises baths with Clorox to combat metals in her system and to, quote, oxygenate the cells. Well, guess what the Clorox website says? And this wasn't issued as a specific statement for Chris Cuomo's wife. This was long-standing issued because people have been making these claims that are unverified for a very long time. Now, I know, you can probably put Clorox in a bath and be fine. But her claim is that she was doing it because it oxygenates the cells. That doesn't work. That's bull crap. Do you know how I know? Clorox says don't do it. And do you know what else doesn't oxygenate cells? Oxygen. It actually doesn't work. When you inhale oxygen, they banned it in sport, they realized that circulating oxygen levels in the blood actually did not increase. There used to be this thing called perfect water that was oxygenated water. No, it doesn't work because your body can limit it, right? If you want to oxygenate your cells, you need to go into a hyperbaric chamber. This is what happens when people get, what's it called? The bends, when they come up, right? That's what they use. C-Dabbers, you know what else can increase oxygenation of the blood? Infrared light therapy, up to 7%. That's recognized by, I believe, the FDA.
That's another form of light.
Right, it's another form of light.
You may have mentioned. Maybe he forgot the word.
Clorox baths to oxygenate the cells. Oh my God.
You know what it also says at the very end of that statement in the overlay that we put up in the highlighted text? At the very bottom it says, don't use this in a bath. It has not been approved by the EPA. We never recommend for you to do that.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, but Christina Cuomo says that it does.
She knows better.
Wait, do you add the crystals?
Yeah, that's a different post. Yeah, the crystals.
True.
Healing crystals.
Healing.
Which, if you're wondering, like, has it been peer reviewed? It's not been reviewed. No peers.
No, there are negative reviews.
Yeah. She has no peers.
Yeah, I guess there's probably a crystal house somewhere where there are a few Yelpers like, this didn't do anything.
No. Walked out.
And the lady was really snooty. Her husband kept coming out of the basement like he was Jesus Christ. And I'm like, what is going on?
That's kind of weird.
Then she goes on. She goes on to talk about their regimen, and by the way, we know that Christopher Cuomo. You all saw his video where he came out from the basement and like he's been quarantined there. No, we know that you were threatening cyclists to the point that they had to file police reports, Christopher Cuomo. But let's get back to your wife. So. She says that it's all about, in her website, it's all about helping the immune system and eliminating radiation. Because, quote, we're all exposed to radiation, cell phone, Wi-Fi, and it agitates our cells. Guess where we get more radiation? The Earth.
We should get rid of that.
On a daily basis from the atmosphere and cosmic rays.
Definitely get away. That.
So she's getting on these energy pads and she's talking about these medicines and barks that are not proven at all, by the way,
Right.
and advocating it as a regimen. You cannot find Donald Trump advocating to people without the care, under the supervision of a doctor, advocating completely unproven methods.
No.
The closest thing that you can find, and the media was furious about, including Christopher Cuomo, by the way, was Donald Trump saying, if you're looking at a ventilator, ask your doctor. I would try the chloroquine. What do you have to lose? That's not nearly as bad as electromagnetic therapy pads and crystals.
Clorox baths. Don't forget the baths.
Clorox
Very
baths
important.
to oxygenate the cells.
Yes.
You know, can I make a prediction? Can I make a prediction? Someone's going to come out with an article that's like, Donald Trump's family owns $7 in stock in the Sun, touting unproven therapies. He's
Expecting it to get bigger and bigger.
something shady.
And then Joe Biden is going to be like, can we create like a catapult that'll block the sun?
Whoa.
So that I plunge the world into darkness, all but guaranteeing my... Who stopped?
I was gonna
wanted to hear
that
the end of the story.
That was actually a really bad impression because he would never put those many words.
Yeah.
together.
No, he was
Too
not.
many words.
Yeah.
His
That's
wife
in a
was
row.
on CNN this morning. Like,
Oh.
Jill Biden, like, where's Joe?
He's under the table asleep, curled up like a dog.
She looks at the floor. Nowhere.
Nowhere. And she's like kicking down. Stop it.
He gets sensory overload.
Too much.
We have him in a flotation tank pretty much 24/7 until it's time to come out. And then we change out the salt water. It's a mess.
Too
It's
much
a mess.
radiation.
Here's another thing that Christopher Cuomo's wife, said. She also says that vitamin C in IV kills viruses like corona, and she advises zinc. Now, let me be really clear, actually. I want to be clear about this. Vitamin C intravenously there is some information
there are
out there that
benefits.
shows that it can benefit viruses, and you can't take enough of it orally, right? Your body doesn't actually use it, you excrete it. So I don't want to say that everything she's saying is completely unproven.
Right.
But if we are using the standard that they are trying to use with President Donald Trump or any conservative, then absolutely you would have to throw this out along with magnolia bark or whatever else the hell it is that she's talking about, like electric pads. I don't even know what half the stuff
Vagina
is.
candles.
Well, she's saying that this
Vagina
is...
candles.
Well, yeah. Oh, gosh, we had to go there.
Wrong
really.
coast. Wrong coast.
The same genre.
Ah. Jeez, I lost my train of thought.
You know,
almost.
I do think that look, some folks are going to go, oh, you know, the president should be held to a higher standard.
Sure.
Of course, he
Yeah.
shouldn't be, touting electric pads. Y'all, go back and read the transcript. Look
Right.
at the
Yeah.
full video. He's talking to a doctor, asking, are you going to be doing these kinds of studies to check into these kinds
Right.
of therapies based on the fact that we know that there are these analogies outside the body? Is there some way for us to figure this out?
Right.
Talking
He's just
directly to
asking.
them.
Well,
I know.
Also, and I've seen anecdotal evidence and studies about this drug. I wonder if you're at the very end of your rope and you're about to be put on a ventilator
Right.
because you can't breathe, is it possible for a doctor to try this?
Yeah.
Not do
and
this
he stands to
say.
gain nothing, as
Right.
opposed to Christopher Cuomo's wife, who wants to sell you bedspreads. So I just want to be really clear here.
Oh,
There's
that's the
a
end.
conflict. That's what, if you were to go to PubMed, would say there's a conflict of interest because this non-peer-reviewed study only included 2 subjects, and it was funded by Christopher Cuomo. So you should take it with a grain of salt. Also, it's untrue. So she says that vitamin C in IV virus, so she goes through magnolia bark, electromagnetic pads, Clorox baths, all the crystals are sold on the website, all the stuff that doesn't really work, that, like, unilateral. There are some supplements that work, some supplements that have, nothing cures coronavirus, but there are some supplements out there that could prove to be useful for people.
Right.
She recommends almost all of the wrong ones. I would encourage you to go and look it up. But vitamin C specifically, and like turmeric and stuff, which she talks about, Ayurvedic medicine, really? Yeah, I mean, you can nary a corona case found in India. It sounds familiar, though. Like,
Those words.
wouldn't that be? Didn't someone say that might be a problem?
Raising authoritative information. But then we also talk about removing information that is problematic. Of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated, so people saying like, take vitamin C, take turmeric, like those all will cure you. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy.
Yeah. So I expect it to, she didn't write it on YouTube, but I expect the Purist blog to at least be removed from search.
It should be.
So, And that's all I have to say about that. That being said, of course, I wish Chris Cuomo's wife the best in recovery. Just stop dispensing dangerously bad medical advice and killing people. Why do you not care about lives? That's really my main concern here. We have Dan Crenshaw. Let Representative Dan Crenshaw know we'll be probably about 10 minutes late. And before that, we have one more story about Osama bin Laden, actually.
Okay.
Who had an assassination attempt on Obama to make Biden president. We'll talk about that. But first, it's time to go to our good friend, correspondent, Pantelis, tell stories.
So I see that a lot of you are still looking at all the negatives with this whole COVID thing. But look at the positives. Look at the scientific breakthroughs. I don't know if you guys saw, but in Italy, in Venice specifically, since there's no more people, the dolphins are back. The dolphins took over, right? That's a discovery. We had no idea that dolphins, much like the Germans, were disgusted by Italians. I'm not saying it's right for these dolphins to be racist, but we would have never known had this not happened. You go to the Arab world. It's a religious time for them now. People are sad because the streets of Mecca are empty, right? But on the bright side, rapes are down 95% from last year. Now, domestic abuse is up in the region, but you win some, you beat some. Those are the rules of the COVID game. Stay positive.
All right, then. Thanks, Pantelis.
Good point. Did you notice that the Mounties were like busting his door down to arrest him for making those jokes?
We have to get him out of there.
Hilarious.
It's gonna be not without my Pantelis. Just putting him in a shawl across the.
No, we're gonna put him like the Nissan CEO. We're gonna put him in some music boxes and ship him transatlantic across the St. Lawrence.
So here's another story that is just it's just too funny to pass up. Did you guys hear about that? Osama bin Laden had a plot to kill Barack Obama. Not fun, of course. I wasn't a fan of Barack Obama, but he's our sitting president. Of course, I would defend him because I'm Team America, especially when compared to terrorists. But the reason that Osama bin Laden wanted to assassinate Obama is gut-bustingly funny because he thought that, bring that back up, Joe Biden was so ill-equipped to be president that it would thrust the American public into chaos. Whoa. So when people talk about the Russians paying $3,000 on Facebook ads, for using nasty words about Hillary Clinton, just think about this for a second. Public enemy number one, Osama bin Laden, was going to pop his head out of his cave to try and take out our president just because he was so supremely confident Joe Biden is out of his mind.
And this was Joe Biden 10 years ago.
Yeah. Joe Biden 10 years ago.
Much more lucid Joe Biden.
He is not a fine wine. He does not improve with age. No. He's more like an apple that's been put in a brown paper bag.
But I think the Democrats knew this and they have enacted his plan. What he was trying to do as a terrorist attack, they have done through the nomination process.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not a Muslim, but I think I might have been wrong about all of this because it seems like Osama bin Laden was clairvoyant. So maybe he was just communicating with demons, like Muhammad thought with, when he thought he was
a jinn.
Satan, and then they were like, no, that's Gabriel. So maybe that's what's happening with Osama bin Laden.
Different guy.
Maybe back then he saw a vision, or maybe in his hat with the Islamic terrorist,
like Harry Potter hat,
seer stones. So maybe he saw back then what we see now, like this interaction. I just had to shoehorn this in between current presidential nominee Joe Biden and previous presidential nominee Al Gore. Watch.
What's happening? We're not organizing, and we don't organize the world. Who organizes it? Who organizes it? And so there's so much, I think. Anyway, look. I one more question here. Is it too late
Look at Gore's face.
to address the climate change in a meaningful way?
Did he say undress?
Aggress.
Yeah.
He misspoke.
And Al Gore is making a face like, I need to get to a Swedish massage parlor with a man named Sven, 2 ends, quickly.
I actually thought Al Gore was thinking, dang, I got a shot.
Yeah.
Is it too late to get in?
I shouldn't have retired. I should come back.
I wish Florida didn't go increasingly red.
I do wonder, do you think the Russians are coming? They're going to come and they're going to be like, man, we thought we were going to mess up America by getting Trump as president. That didn't work.
Yeah.
So you know who we're going for next?
Joe Biden.
Well,
I guarantee you they want Joe. So what happened with Trump back then when we talk about the Russians is just no one gave President Trump a shot. Remember the night we did the election stream, they had a 99% chance of Hillary Clinton winning.
No way he was going to win.
So they wanted to undermine Hillary Clinton, the person who they thought would be the sitting president. Either way, if Donald Trump was a heavy favorite, guarantee you they would have tried to undermine Donald Trump.
Right.
He was a long shot, and he won.
Right.
And since they just want to basically wreak chaos on the American public, what better way than to just, I mean, you don't even need to create an ad set like on Twitter or Facebook.
You don't.
Just take a clip and add $1 million to put it in everyone's feed of Joe Biden and just watch the magic unfurl.
What Joe Biden is trying to do right now, get in front of you, is all they would have to do to destroy America. They think, in their minds, Joe Biden as president.
Hey, can we show the screen real quick?
What screen?
CNN.
Oh, the CNN. Oh, what's going on?
Hey, look at the chyron at the bottom. Eclipses 50,000.
And then
look at the number
on the right.
1 inch away.
1 inch away.
Hey, that might be 1.5 inches away, depending on the size of your screen.
Yeah,
but guys, they can't even just look at their own screen.
because
They're back to this
school.
dangerously look, the injecting thing again. Disinfectant.
Dangerously suggests injecting disinfectant as treatment. At
All
least it's
day.
an improvement from this morning where they said Donald Trump says inject Lysol.
I am offended by the fact that Pence and Trump have the same tie on.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
Yeah, it was a little bit rough. You know, they both showed up and Donald Trump was like, shit.
One of us has to change.
Damn you, Pence.
And then Pence was like, oh, that's okay, Mr. President. I can just go without a tie. No, you look fantastic, open collar.
He won't have it.
You know why they can't do that? This is the problem. They're unionized at CNN. They're old school. So they can't change that ticker on the right, even though it said 50,000 deaths on the bottom, until the guy who actually has vinyl scorecard flips it over. And then someone with a megaphone says, 50,000! And the boy goes, oh, boy, extra, extra, and runs up to Anderson Cooper and he pats him on the butt. And he goes, bump it to 50,000, Anderson! Otherwise, they can't do it. You can't blame them for their
union rules.
I like
okay?
how they're not relying on their own source, right? I mean, they couldn't even just wait, right? They were just like so excited. They're like, guys, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Do it! Do it! Just hit the button! Just hit the button! Just hit the button.
It's early.
It's over 50. We're ready.
Extra, extra, read all about it. CNN is wrong. And that's the thing.
That's not news.
That's not
Is that
news
a
at
young
all.
Christian Bale from Newsies?
Yes, exactly.
Clicking his heels in the
Right.
air?
Yeah, as opposed to Fox News as young Christian Bale from Empire of the Sun, where he's just going.
Right.
And then there are planes. All right, do we have him on the line? Okay,
All
so we
right.
actually have our guest on the line, which is really why you guys tune in, let's be honest.
Of course.
He's a representative, of course, here in the United States. He's made a lot of us proud recently.
Yes.
His new book is called Fortitude. It's on the New York Times bestseller list, number 5, I believe, yesterday. Let's get it to number 1. You know him, you love him. He's a friend of the show. Mr. Dan Crenshaw, how are you, sir?
Hey, Stephen, good to be with you, man. I'm doing well. How are you?
Crappy. So, I do want to play a clip for anyone who was. I'm just really mad because I injected Lysol this morning and it didn't work out. So, I was following the very specific name brand prescription that I was told President Trump espoused.
Yeah.
And just so you know, it's not a cure.
I mean, you don't know that. You're not a scientist.
This is true. For people who haven't seen it, Mr. Crenshaw, I do want to play a clip because we've had you on the show quite a bit, but oh my gosh, I think I'm not a fan of Bill Maher. Maybe you two have a friendly relationship, but I don't know any. I can't. If you don't have anything nice to say, roll the clip.
There are still people coming in from China. He only stopped foreign nationals.
Yeah, okay, let me address that because I know that's what people are saying right now. But the reality is that was about 40,000 people came in after that. These are U.S. citizens and green card holders and passport holders being repatriated. U.S. citizens. So you have to make the argument then that we shouldn't allow them in. And I mean, it sounds to me like you're fully agreeing with President Trump on this when everybody else disagreed with him. And,
No,
and if you're saying that you wish that travel restriction had been more extreme, okay, fine. I mean, you apparently had the foresight back then, but when nobody else did.
Okay. Please get this book to number 1, just because I want you to go back on. So I have been present and known quite a few people who've been there for Bill Maher's tapings. And a lot of it, like there's a crowd animator at most late night shows, and then at Bill Maher, it's like, you better clap or you are out of here. It's a
threat.
And he uses that power of the audience. We've never seen Bill Maher perform this poorly. He usually portrays himself as a genius. Let me ask you, do you think that it helped you that you were both on equal footing as opposed to being in his studio with his audience? Did that embolden you?
Equal footing is always good. I've never been in his studio with his audience, so I've got nothing to compare it with. The conversation could have gone totally differently if it was about a different topic. Also, the reality is on this particular topic, we have all the evidence on our side,
right?
And they don't. So they're at a total disadvantage. I do think Bill Maher's a smart guy. I do, and I do have some respect for him. He does a lot of things that like I really don't like either. I mean, we probably have the same opinions, but he
no,
is,
I don't have much respect for him. I do think he's smart, but I don't have much respect for him. So I want to make sure that you're not tarred and feathered because of my lack of respect. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I try to give everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people the most benefit of the doubt that I can.
Yeah.
And he takes. I appreciate anybody who goes after their own progressive left-wing.
That's true.
Left-wingers to the extent that he does. And I like I told him on the show, and I meant it. I do see him as a liberal, not a leftist, and I think there's a difference. I think he's wrong on almost everything he says.
Yeah.
But at least he's willing to debate it and bring somebody like me on.
Sure.
And present his facts the best way he can, and allow me to present mine. So.
Yes. That being said, I think that you have a skewed view because this was run in its entirety, and again, often what happens in his studio is he cuts the parts that he doesn't like. That's the problem. We've actually only ever edited in the history of the show 2 interviews, and one was by request, and the other one was because the guy was on drugs and didn't remember it, and we thought, well, it wouldn't be fair to run this. Outside of that, we never change it. We let the cards fall where they may. It was Artie Lang. That's no secret, and I love Artie Lang, and I didn't want him to get in trouble. This was before, he's sober now, so that's a good thing. We can celebrate it.
Yeah.
But so your experience is more of an even debate. That doesn't happen in a studio. That being said, my primary gripe with him is that he's painfully unfunny, and I don't have that with like Jon Stewart, even Stephen Colbert. Bill Maher's punchline is right, and someone with an applause sign. And so when you take that away from the equation, I mean, you were daddy.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what it's like to have the audience there. I don't know that it would have changed all that much. It kind of depends on your personality. To an extent, I'm a bit emboldened by even more adversaries.
Right.
And they're not all that distracting to me. You put a lot of effort and preparation into any interview. You kind of know what the topics are going to be. They're fair. Like they say, hey, we're going to talk about this stuff. We're not going to tell you what our questions are. We're not going to tell you what angle we're coming at it from. Yeah. We're going to generally tell you what we're talking about. So, even if they hadn't told me that, of course I know it's going to be about Trump having blood on his hands, right? Like, of course I know that, because that's what everybody's talking about all the time during that week. Notice it stopped. Notice that line, that narrative hasn't bubbled up a whole lot recently. I think it was so thoroughly debunked, and the Washington Post tried to do a fact check on me. They did their best. There was no fact checking in there, just quibbling, and then Guy Benson, our friend, wrote a counterpiece to that one.
Oh, he's not my friend. I hate him. But Guy Benson slept on my couch. Actually, in this is before. What's funny is, I swear this is a true story. Guy Benson. He will confirm this. Very nice guy. I've always had good. I used to do his show all the time. I was living with the booker for Red Eye in Chelsea, New York, I was the only straight man for 4 straight blocks. At this point, Guy Benson was out of the closet. And so we were on a Fox panel together, and I was like, well, you don't have to pay money for a hotel. Yeah, we can stay on the couch. He's like, oh, thank you. I'm pretty sure that at the time, he probably thought I was gay. Oh. Gay roommate in Chelsea. Right. And then afterwards, he came out of the closet. I was like, oh, yeah. All right, cool.
Well, how do you feel about him not giving you a pass? He didn't even try.
Yeah, I know. I felt a little insulted. I was like, you're sleeping on my couch. My door didn't have a lock. So, no, I love Guy Benson. And if I were you, Mr. Crenshaw, do you prefer Representative Crenshaw, Mr. Crenshaw, Danny?
Dan. Definitely not Danny. Let's go with Dan.
Oops. Okay. Dan, something I do appreciate about you that you just said, all kidding aside, is you said, you prepare for the interviews. There are some people in the conservative movement, and frankly, I'm smart enough, but I always over-prepare. So, for example, if we do a Change My Mind or something like that, which Quarter Black, Garrett, Audio Wade, Gerald, it can be 4 or 5 hours of anyone who comes up. I will spend each hour of Change My Mind averages out to about 10 hours of prep. And there are a lot of people who take pride in saying, I don't prepare. I'm just that good. And I think that you're obviously very smart. You're a sharp guy. But you telling people that you take it seriously and prepare, that's not always the most popular marketing angle. And does it frustrate you when you see other people who prepare thoroughly, but they act like it comes naturally?
I haven't really thought about that. I don't really believe anybody that's just... honestly, if they are genuine... all I see is the outcome, right? So if you're genuinely good at debate, and you've anticipated counter arguments, and and you've got a list of facts, then clearly you've prepared. Now, maybe you memorized it faster than somebody else did. Maybe it only took you 30 minutes.
Right.
Maybe you do this so often that really you didn't prepare.
Right.
There's plenty of heated debates that I go into that I honestly don't prepare for, but that doesn't mean I haven't been preparing for years.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're living in preparation.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know. I haven't really thought about that too much.
No, I think it's valuable. I think young people who look up to you, and there are a lot of people who look up to you, sometimes people think like, oh, my hero or someone I admire. And I'm not saying you're my hero. I like you, but let's pull back the reins a little bit. But for some people, that may be the case, and it's good for them to see like, oh, he takes this here. He prepares. He understands that he can be caught flat-footed. That makes it more accessible,
which is what I want to see.
Yeah, I think you're pretty
right. And chapter 2 is called "Who is your hero?" and it's a question, and you would answer it, Dan Crenshaw,
and Bill Maher would answer, well, he would scratch out hero and write daddy. Yeah. I'm sorry. No. Here's the thing. You have to understand. I never, and my lawyer, half-Asian lawyer Bill Richmond, has a question for you, but I never made it past the screener with Bill Maher.
Yeah.
I spoke on the phone with the screener, and they asked me. I remember this was when the Russia thing was going on, and I said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "Well, I don't know. What do you want to talk about?" And they said, "Well, you have to." I said, "Well, I just saw Beauty and the Beast last night, and I thought it was pretty funny that in colonial France they had black royalty and
Tons of
powdered
them.
wig and whiteface. Like if we're talking about #Oscars so white, can't you chalk this up as a win?" And she goes, "So you want to come on a political show and talk about Beauty and the Beast?" I said, "No, I just told you what pissed me off yesterday. I saw the film. What do you want to talk about?" And she goes, "Russia." I said, "Okay, well, listen, what do you got aside from conjecture?" And she said, "Well, I'll call you back." Click. So apparently I'm not as smart as the folks who make it on the show. I can't hold a candle to the SE Cups and Lorenz of the world.
I would love to see you and Bill hang out. I think it'd be hilarious. So yeah, I do think preparation is important. I do talk about that in my book quite a bit. In a serious way, I did bring up that chapter called "Who is Your Hero?" because you have to be, when you look up to people, it shouldn't be a person, because somebody will always disappoint you.
Right.
But you should look up to attributes, and you should, my debate, the guy that I look up to as a debater who's always anticipating the arguments and knows how to frame the argument.
Gallagher.
You can probably guess. Ben Shapiro.
Okay. He's pretty good.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's very good and framing the argument's incredibly important.
Yeah.
The way I framed the argument for Bill's show was this: like, it's a simple question. Are you trying to make Trump look bad, or are you trying to get to the truth?
Right.
Because there's two different answers there.
Yes.
And I think the best way to debate the left oftentimes is to expose what they're doing in that moment. And so here's an example, right? Like lately we've been debating whose fault it was that the small business funding got delayed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Democrats will claim that they're on a moral high ground because all they wanted to do was add more money to it, right? And so they fought for that, and
right.
they're fighters for the American people, and they're fighters for our hospitals and the testing. But here's the thing: they're fighting for money that doesn't need to be replenished.
Right.
We're fighting, the funding that we've already allocated is not even close to being spent yet. Should have spent we should have replenished the small business funding over a week ago,
right.
And then figured out, how to spend the rest of the money. But here's how to frame that argument and expose what they're doing. They're attaching the size of their heart to dollar signs.
Right.
So just say that, right? Like that's
important. They're attaching the size of their heart to dollar signs from somebody else's pocket. It's not their dollars.
Exactly.
That's something that people often miss. And I will say, listen, I don't consider myself a skilled debater at all, but the one thing that I've always talked about, and this was a book that I pitched, funny enough, to conservative publishers back when I was at Fox News. It became Change My Mind. And they said, this isn't going to work. The Obama Blueprint was a big book. So like, if you have a doomsday Obama thing, that'll sell. But this won't work to trying to convince people to your way of thinking. And I always said, listen, this was before social justice warrior was a term. This is before snowflake was a term. So I referred to them as as modern leftist progressives, and the American idiots, meaning the sort of Green Day used that against conservatives. And I meant American idiots, people who are liberal by default, people who watch TV, who tune into CNN, who every radio show they listen to, every band they like tells them to be left wing. And I said, there are two different approaches. You need to change the mind of these people, these sort of ignorant Americans who've taken this position by default. And that's where you take an approach, use the Socratic method, have have them walk through their own arguments. That's usually most productive. Someone like a Bill Maher or Nancy Pelosi, like you're saying, what you have to do is highlight what they're saying, make an example of them so that then you can convince the people who have taken the position by default. And identifying the two different kinds of people with whom you're speaking is, I think, a very important skill set. And I think you handle it very well with Bill Maher.
That's it. That's a great point. Well, because you're not going to convince Bill on his show to see it your way. That's not the purpose of the show. The purpose is to have a debate for an audience and convince other people that way. What you do with Change Your Mind is really great, and I love that you put a lot of preparation into it. You have to, because you have to anticipate every angle that somebody's going to come from, and every personal experience that they might bring up. And I think you do a good job of anticipating that. It also helps when you're trying to support an argument that, frankly, you've got a lot of evidence on your side for.
And I think it's important to have those, because I guarantee you that if Bill Maher and I were to sit down and talk, or for example, when we've had mayors in the show, and Naomi Wolf, it's more hostile in the sense that when someone is coming on saying I'm wrong, well, listen, I'm going to match the intensity. So it's important for me, for people to see me speaking in a very civil, respectful way, and trying to convince people, bring them to my way of thinking, so they understand the difference between that and handling what is effectively a character assault. Because I'm not always going to be meek. My half-Asian lawyer, did you have a question there?
I did, yeah. Representative, thanks so much for being on the show. One of the questions I have right now is, we know that there's a lot of different counties and states that are opening, taking some measured approaches to try and get people back to work, allow the economy to partially restart. Are there any particular thoughts you have about those counties, and is there any part about your book Fortitude that you think speaks to what's going on right now and the kind of debates we're having over the controversial topic of letting some people safely go back to work?
Yes, definitely. So what I talk about a lot in the book, it's a prevalent theme throughout, which is personal responsibility, owning your own destiny. And I make a very strong argument against this idea of victimhood culture, where you actually remove agency from people's ability, or from people, and remove their ability to control their own lives. When you tell somebody you're a victim, that's effectively what you're doing. You're disempowering them. This is pretty applicable to how we open up our society. We have to trust the American people to make the right decisions, to live with this sense of duty. Another thing I talk about in the book is the fact that the government's job is to protect your rights, but there is an exchange there, an exchange of citizenship, an exchange to live responsibly and to live dutifully and morally. But we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the idea of citizenship and doing the right thing. And that is more important than ever as we reopen the economy. You have to trust people. And I'm going against our county judge here in Harris County, because she gave a directive, all too sensible, that suggests that we wear masks in public. That's fine, but then added $1,000 fine if you don't do it.
Right.
I said, no, that's not fine.
Right.
And it's just totally unnecessary. Allow Americans to do the right thing. We were already socially distancing before it was a directive from the top down. And we can do this too. Let businesses figure it out. Okay. Let businesses figure out how to restructure their office space or their restaurant space so that we can get back to normalcy. There is no choice but to return to some sense of new normal. There's no choice.
Right.
And this false dichotomy between staying home forever and letting people die, that's a false choice. It's not true, never has been. Only political opportunists are making it sound like that, and it disgusts me. But to get back to that new normal, we have to act like good Americans. And I'll say this last thing. One, talking about the Harvards that took the money but returned it, and the Shake Shacks that took the money but returned it. If you're a business out there whose revenue hasn't really changed, shame on you for taking the small business loans that we're giving out. It's very hard from a policy perspective to put proper limits on those. It's extremely difficult, because as soon as you do, you start making it even harder for the smaller businesses.
But then the problem also, I think we also understand that the problem becomes, like John Stossel has talked about this. He had some kind of a federal grant subsidy where his home built on stilts effectively in the ocean washed away like 2 times. He goes, I know that some people say I'm a hypocrite for taking the state funding, but I'd be an idiot not to. And there is a problem where if small businesses are still even operating on an honest profit margin, well, if they don't take the loans that are available, they're going to be competing with bigger businesses that are, and they'll fall further behind.
And totally get it, but un-American, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Period.
Yeah.
Full stop. So when I got out of the military, I read about this in my book too. When I got out of the military, and this feeds into the victimhood culture, and there's a reason why. When I got out of the military, I was eligible for Social Security disability insurance. I was actually, they actually promoted it in the military. Like, hey, not only are you getting medically retired because you're injured or something's wrong with you, but
what happened?
As soon as you get out,
Sorry.
Such a jerk.
I apologize.
Do you though?
No. That's going to be a highlight. Okay, sorry, but continue. Yeah, they were promoting Social Security. I know this. I know this.
Yeah, and so it blew my mind. This was after I got my eye blown out. And so the other thing about that
make him feel bad
was in case you were wondering what happened, but in that classroom full of other Navy sailors, I was honestly wondering what had happened. Every single person in there looked fine from the outside, at least. Right. Nobody had been in combat. These were not a bunch of fellow special operators by any means. This was not Army Infantry or Marine Corps. None of that. Everybody was getting medically retired for some reason. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reasons you can get medically retired or just choose to go through the medical retirement process.
Yeah.
And the government will take care of you afterwards. I believe generously. Some might disagree with me. I believe it's very generous.
Yeah.
But to also get Social Security disability insurance, which most Americans believe is for Americans that are so disabled they can't work.
Right.
So they need SSDI. I could have gotten up to $2,000 extra a month, especially after I got out and I wasn't full-time working. Remember, I went back to school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it. I refused to apply for that. I could have, and by economic sense and by the straight economic sense that you're describing and that a lot of businesses are using to justify taking money that they don't need, I could have taken that. Right. But I refused because that's not who I want to be. And this goes into the conversation about who your heroes are and what we should applaud in America.
Yeah, I was more so just pointing out the issue that in this case it's appropriate because the government stepped in and said we're going to effectively put you out of business. Right? They said don't be a patron of this business anymore. Don't support them. So this is different from stimulus. Yeah, but my point is that this is what ends up happening when the government, let's say more so, it would be more appropriate with the stimulus under the Obama era presidency, where you're effectively picking winners and losers. Then everyone says like, well, if I have to compete, it becomes like the steroid argument, and it's not a good thing. That's why we just should have government involved as little as possible. Final question. I know you have to go. Regarding your book, Fortitude, which is available everywhere books are sold, if you can find a bookstore anymore, but certainly digitally on Amazon. You talk about in the book like how to find strength and fortitude, and obviously it's reminiscent of Jocko quite a bit, who's been on the show, and I think it's a message that's very much needed. How would you respond to this claim that's going out quite a bit that Generation Z believe they've lived their entire lives in crisis, and so they've lost hope? I mean, this is front page at a lot of different news outlets, as though they've had it worse than any generation before them, and then when polled, they are more defeated and hopeless. And that mindset, to me, is frankly very scary as they enter the workforce.
Yeah, the best reference for this phenomenon with Gen Z is Jonathan Haidt's book, The Coddling of the American Mind. I've referenced that book quite a bit in my book. My book is a set of solutions to the problem. I'm not diagnosing the problem itself. I reference good authors that have done so. And Coddling of the American Mind, I think, is the premier place to look if you're looking for why Gen Z is that way. And there's a lot of reasons. College campuses basically reinforcing these bad ideas that your feelings actually matter. I mean, they matter, but like the feelings that make you right. Like over reason and over logic. And the coddling that has occurred both on campuses and in the household. Mm-hmm. There's good data on this to show that Gen Z was only allowed to leave the house to go to a friend's house like much later in life than say even millennials or Gen Xers.
And really quickly, if I can say too, what's really scary though is they have a legitimate gripe that they're entering a more competitive workforce than previous generations. Like that is something that now it is hyper specialized. So you have a generation, and I would say more so millennials than Generation Z. It seems like they might actually be a little bit better, some of the stats that we're seeing, but they are being coddled growing up and then being thrust into a hyper competitive exponentially evolving workplace, and that seems like a recipe for disaster because there is validity to them going like, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah, no, and there is validity, just like when the millennials have complaints about basically graduating into a financial crisis. I get it. There's some validity to these issues. Right. There's some validity to the complaints that housing is more expensive, healthcare is more expensive, and college is more expensive relative to past generations. It is. Okay. Everything else, though, is much better. Does it cancel each other out? I'm not so sure. Can you move to a place where housing is cheaper? Yeah, you can. Millennials like to live in places where housing is more expensive, and also better jobs are there. So, I get it. There are pressures that we do have to, I think, acknowledge, and Gen Z, I think we have to acknowledge too that yes, they are starting their early careers right now in the midst of this crisis. I do think we bounce back from this rather quickly, and so that would be my message of hope to them.
Yeah, I mean, message of hope is imagine France surrendering and going like, pretty much all of Europe is lost except for one guy, Churchill, putting up a fight, and we have a choice between communism or fascism. I think that probably would be a little bit scarier than according to Cuomo, the highest estimate now is a 0.5% death rate. Every life lost matters, but it's not the depths of despair and hopelessness for every Generation Z American. Okay, the book is Fortitude. Mr. Representative Dan Crenshaw, I appreciate you being here, brother. Stay well, and let us know next time you're on Bill Maher's show.
I will. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
Be well. All right, hang up on him. He's so smug. So, no, that's great. Very helpful. And the book is Fortitude. It's available anywhere books are available, frankly. Let's get to a couple of chats, and then let's play this out here.
Can I point out something very quickly? What? Since we were live stream bitching about the numbers being off on CNN, they've now corrected it. And their sources themselves.
Yeah.
They're now like, well, we got some data from Johns Hopkins University, but then also we quoted ourselves.
That used to be Johns Hopkins only source, down there as the source. So now they're like, no, we're better than Johns Hopkins.
And why, also me.
Wait, and why do they have the expert right now staring at the Ark of the Covenant? What is happening?
I hear it cleanses. It's painful, but it cleanses.
Should have closed his eyes.
Let's read a couple of chats. Yeah. The promo code is quarantine, $30 off, ladderwithcredit.com/MugClub, and you'll be able to chat with us as well because YouTube pays us not. Go ahead.
We've got one here. Good morning, all. I joined MugClub today.
Thank you.
I am a truck driver and enjoy listening to you guys on Spotify. I was wondering if there is any way to hold the press accountable, either legally or otherwise, for their negligence or lies.
Lies like Mickey your Fig. Name, your stage name, Mickey Fig.
Mickey Fig. It's a bass
player name. This one would probably go to Bill, but I think I know the answer.
So there's a very, very high standard when it comes to going after news sources. As you can imagine, they've lobbied a long time to make sure that the precedent is such that unless you are intentionally or maliciously going after someone with fake information, which again requires you to have a mindset, right? But certainly there's a pattern. A lot of what you look at for intent and maliciousness is what we call mens rea, or the mind. And if you have done enough acts, then you may be able to interpret that this is
mens
what
rea?
they meant.
I have mens rea. No, not mens rea. That was
Love it.
Gene Wilder. You remember that? You know, evil.
So it's going to be real hard, but
awesome.
You know who actually has the most power? Don't click on CNN. Don't go to the sources that you don't like. Choose
don't
the
go
ones
to
that
the
you do.
purist.
Yeah, don't go to the purist unless you really, really need an electric
Go
pad
to
with
crazyasswitchdoctorbitch.com. That's my preferred
Over the purist.
holistic naturopath.
Same advice.
All right, final chat. Let's read it, and then
John H. Question for everyone: in your opinion, what is the worst thing that the Democrats have done or said since Trump became president?
A
lot of options.
A lot of options. I think the overarching idea is that Donald Trump wants to kill Americans. Because it's that when it's repealing the Obamacare laws that weren't really working. They're saying that when he wants to reopen the economy in a 3 or 4 phase program. They say it take your pick. When he has a meeting with Kim Jong-un, they always he doesn't care about the lives of Americans. And I think when you look at, again, his comments and when he tries to, the reason he's doing the press briefings is because he wants to speak directly to the American people, right? And when he does that, he tends to actually register better with the American people. His poll numbers go up. When Cortez is speaking directly from her webcam, people go, someone primaried her. So the idea that Donald Trump and, of course, all conservatives. Be aware, by the way, every attack on Donald Trump, even if you didn't support him, like me in the primaries, I had someone else, an attack on him is really an attack by proxy on all conservatives. That's what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to say Republicans, if it weren't Donald Trump, if it were Rand Paul, if it were Carly Fiorina, if it were Ted Cruz, they'd be saying the same thing. You don't care about lives unless you support our policy, like making sure the stimulus sends money to Planned Parenthood. So that, to me, is really probably the worst because listen, I even think I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek when I say, why don't you care about the lives lost by keeping the economy shut down? Because 1 in 5 suicides are related to unemployment. I don't think that they want Americans to die. I just think they're being disingenuous, and their policies will absolutely, verifiably result in more deaths than a systematic opening of the economy in a responsibly phased program.
Yeah, I would say Russia real quick, just because basically spending essentially billions of dollars trying to undermine his presidency from the get-go so that everything he says later is through the lens of a puppet president who's illegitimate, who's being controlled by somebody else.
Yeah. Right. I think the worst thing they said is presumptive nominee Joe Biden. Some might argue that's the best thing because it's going to be hilarious when we get to debates. But
why do you want more Americans to die by making Joe Biden president? Do you have any idea what will happen? The guy will just forget to pay the debt bill.
Like,
all right, what? Who stopped? Hey, you owe us money. Who's that? What?
I didn't order takeout.
Al Gore? He's too busy getting himself. Thank you guys so much. We are going to see you Monday morning with more Good Morning Mug Club, and then, of course, shows every night in the live stream on Thursday with the press briefing, followed by live fact-checking of CNN through their primetime clock. It's going to be tough. Appreciate it. LoudsCrowder.com/MugClub. Promo code Quarantine, $30 off. See you next week.